Hi there everyone, it's Misty here. Welcome. So today's video is going to be a little different. You probably could tell by the title. Sorry I'm wearing my glasses, but I can't see anything. Today we are talking about white privilege. We're going to talk about everything that's been happening in the world. We're going to talk about what happened to George Floyd. And I just want us to have a conversation about everything that's happening in the world without people automatically jumping in and saying all lives matter and blah, 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 blah. So I implore you, if you are a white person who has been going around saying that kind of stuff, just take a deep breath and just listen to what I have to say. So being Black in America is rough. And being Black in America has been rough for about 400 years. Being brown in America is rough, and being brown in America has been rough for like 600 years. We're talking about systematic racism and genocide that goes back pre-settlers days. Don't forget, there were people here when the settlers landed in America. There were brown people here, Native Americans, my people. I am Native American. And they were basically eradicated and moved just because white people saw no value in them because of the color of their skin. It's the same way with Blacks and African Americans. Slave owners and slave traders looked at Black folk and decided that because of the color of their skin, their life didn't matter. They were below whites. They were, they had no rights, and they were meant to just be lesser than white people. And I am privileged. I am white. Like I said, I am Native American. I'm just a little under a quarter. I'm like 15th, 16th. My grandmother was full-blood Mississippi Choctaw. My great-grandfather was full-blood Mississippi Choctaw. And we grew up in Oklahoma. That's because my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother walked from Mississippi to Oklahoma on what was called the Trail of Tears. And they were removed from their home and forced to go somewhere because the white people didn't want them around. And my great-grandfather, I have a picture of him. He's dark. He's very, very dark. So, unfortunately, I've seen racism firsthand. And someone posted a meme, and if I can remember, I'll throw it up. And it said something about how if you don't experience racism and you don't experience COVID-19 personally, then it's like it hasn't happened. It doesn't feel real. And I agree with that. So I think it's a human instinct that when someone says something that could possibly paint us in a negative light, we get defensive. And we get defensive real quick. And I think that's why there's been such this all lives matter versus Black lives matter, because it's literally when you say all lives matter and you're using that as a counter argument, it doesn't work as a counter argument. And I don't understand why people continue to try to use that, because if you think about the word all, that means encompassing everything or everybody. So if you're saying all lives matter, you're also including Black lives in that statement. And what we're saying is all lives matter, white people matter, but white people aren't being hunted, basically. We're not facing the same kinds of things that Black people are facing on the daily that they've been facing for 400 years. You have to remember the civil rights movement wasn't that long ago. Ruby Bridges, who was the first African American child to go to school in a white school, is still alive. Think about that. The first African American child to go to a white school is still alive. She's 65. She's still alive. So the civil rights movement, it hasn't even been a century since that happened. We're talking about what, 80 years, if even? So all of this is still really new. And unfortunately, Black people are still facing a ton of racism and persecution. And unfortunately, I'm going to piss off a bunch of people right now, our president has basically lit a match and paved the way for racists to feel like they can get away with acting on their racism without any kind of repercussions or consequences. We've seen an uprise in white supremacy. We've seen an uprise in violence against people who are brown. When he was very first elected, it was really, really bad. And if you don't see that and you don't understand that, you need to open your eyes. Nothing that I just said is a lie. Nothing that I just said is propaganda. It is the God's honest truth. So the last few weeks have been really rough on Americans, but especially African Americans. And one thing that the term white privilege is said, and whites immediately balk at that. White privilege doesn't mean that you haven't lived a hard life. White privilege doesn't mean that you don't have, that you're rich, that you live in a great house. White privilege is that you're not facing persecution and death because of the color of our skin. And if you don't think white privilege is a thing, let's talk about George Floyd. So if you live under a rock, you may not have seen that George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, a couple of weeks ago now. And he was murdered by a police officer who had his knee on his neck, was basically choking him to death, and for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. George Floyd begged for his life. He begged for his life. He knew they were going to kill him. He said that they're going to kill me. He begged for his mama. There were people on the sidelines who begged the police officer to get off his neck. When he finally lost consciousness, they begged for him to get off him and let them provide medical aid, and they were denied. They were threatened. They couldn't provide aid to him. And George Floyd lost his life because he was Black. You cannot say he lost his life for any other reason than the color of his skin. He was suspected of a $20 counterfeit bill. $20 counterfeit. And instead of questioning him and then arresting him if he had, sufficient evidence, sending him to jail, giving him an opportunity to get a lawyer, if he was indicted, to face trial, and then the jury of his peers to decide what his punishment should be if he were found guilty. That's a Fifth Amendment right. Due process is your Fifth Amendment right to make sure that you are treated fairly in the legal process. And that was taken away from George Floyd. If you've been watching this video, I set this timer for 8 minutes and 46 seconds the minute I started talking. That is how long that cop had his knee on George Floyd's neck. I don't think people realize just how long that happened and just how much pressure was on his neck. He died. He died. He died over $20. $20. And he was innocent. So let's talk about the Charleston 9. If you're unfamiliar, there was a shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, where a white boy walked into a Black church and killed 9 people. Killed 9 people. And if you didn't know the story, he lived. He was arrested. He was arrested by some good old boys down in South Carolina. And they were so unaffected by the death of those congregation members because they were black that they took him through Burger King. He had just murdered 9 people and they took him through Burger King. And George Floyd was killed for $20. Let's talk about Aurora. Aurora, there was a white male that walked into a crowded Batman movie and opened fire, and he killed 82 people. 82 people. And he walked out alive. He was apprehended, he got to go to trial, and he got his sentence. But the problem is, we have people in power, we have police officers who find it's their duty to be judge, jury, and executioner. And that is why you have the Black Lives Matter movement. Sorry, I'm really trying not to get so angry and cry, but if you don't feel anger about the situation, I just don't understand how you can consider yourself a good human being. So I was on Twitter and someone posted a tweet, and I'm going to read it to you and I will try to pop it up if I can remember. If you're a Christian and can't hear Black Lives Matter without feeling the need to respond with the criticism that all lives matter, then crack open your Bible and hit up Luke 15. Don't have it handy? Let me summarize. There are 100 sheep, but one goes missing. Jesus leaves the 99 and goes after that one, the 99. But what about us? Don't we matter? Of course the 99 still matter, but they're not the ones in danger. The one is. When you say all lives matter, it's hurtful. And it diminishes the plight of being black in America. White privilege is being able to go to a park and take pictures with your camera and ask someone to put their dog on a leash, which is that's what they're legally supposed to do. And no one thinks of it other than you're a jerk, walk away. But Amy Cooper told him that she was going to call the police and tell the police that she was being harassed by an African-American male. She knew that she could use his skin color as a weapon. That is white privilege. So there is a photo that I'm going to read from that talks about and shares white privilege. And it's everything we can do as white people that black people cannot do without fear. One of them is jogging. I'm probably going to say his name wrong. Ahmaud Arbery was jogging in Georgia. And 2 white men pulled over. Actually, they hit him with his car first. And then they killed him because he was black. And it took public outcry after 3 months to get them arrested. 3 months. The DA said, they didn't do anything wrong. 3 months. He was murdered because he was black. If you are white, you can jog without worry. If you're white, you can play Pokemon Go and not worry. When Pokemon Go was the most popular at its peak and kids were going into yards at night, I was so worried about the kids that were African American. And I know there's probably African American families that didn't allow their kids to do that because they were scared about what was going to happen. One thing that we hear from the president and from other white supremacists is that black people are thugs, and the people who were peacefully protesting were thugs. And there have been so many killed in these protests from police. They're protesting police brutality, and they're getting attacked by the police. They're getting attacked by the military. They're getting attacked by the president. But we have the white men and women who went to the governor's Capitol building in Michigan in full riot gear with AK-47s and machine guns, and threatening the governor's life and threatening the life of the cops who were trying to protect her in that building. And they were called good men and women. And Trump does it all the time. His whole entire campaign was centered and focused around discrimination and racism. And if you can't see that, you're never going to see it. If you cannot see that, your racism is so ingrained in your brain that I don't know if there's anything that we can do to help you. And what's worse about all of this is these are just the ones we see. There are probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of other stories about Black men and women and children facing abuse from the police that doesn't come to light because there's no body cam, and there's nobody nearby with a cell phone filming. And it happens every single day. I bet it happens every minute of every single day. I've read stories about, men and women who are followed in Walmart or pulled over because they're driving a nice car and they're Black, or accused of breaking into a house because they're Black. My white privilege, when my husband Rob goes to the grocery store, or if he goes to run an errand, I may worry about his safety and I hope he doesn't get in a wreck, but I don't have to worry about him losing his life if he's pulled over by police. I don't have to worry about him being shot in the back 41 times if he's pulled over by the police. And that is white privilege. And I just don't understand how so many people don't see it and don't understand it. Let's see. I can ask for help from a stranger, but Renisha McBride couldn't. Her car broke down, and she went to somebody's house and to ask for help, and he shot her. Killed her because she asked for help and she was Black. We've all seen the Philando Castile video where he tells the cop that he has a gun. He tells the cop where the gun is, and the cop wants him to get it out his wallet or whatever, and then he shoots him in front of his baby and his girlfriend. He was doing absolutely nothing wrong. He had a legal weapon. He told the police officer that he had a weapon on him, and he was still murdered because he was Black. And that's another thing. Like when Ferguson happened, everybody was like, well, he was a thug, or he had stolen something. And it's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It does not matter, because they shouldn't die for petty theft. They have the Fifth Amendment right to due process. And it doesn't matter what they've done. That's what I just don't understand. It's like, I just don't understand how people just don't get it. We have all of the mass shootings, the most popular mass shootings over the past 10 years have basically been done by white men. White men who get to go to jail, who get to go to trial, and get to be convicted or not convicted by a jury. And women and children are dying before they even get there. Look at Tamir Rice. He had a water gun and he was killed. What's his name in Walmart? I can shop at Walmart. John Crawford. John Crawford was in Walmart looking at a BB gun that he wanted to buy, and the cop shot him and killed him. He was looking at a BB gun. How would he have a loaded gun in Walmart? He had been shopping in Walmart. the whole entire time. And someone called the police on him and he lost his life. White people, stop calling the police when you see a black person. Don't call the police if you see a black person pumping gas. Don't call police if you see a black person at the bank. Don't call police if you see them at Walmart just living their lives. Stop calling the police because you see a black person. They have every right to be here just like white people. And I'm sick and tired. I'm just so sick and tired. And I'm white. I can't imagine what it's like to be black in America with all of these institutional racism and all these people who just don't think your life matters. And that is why we have the Black Lives Matter movement. That is why people are protesting. And the world is with you. The world is with you. We have seen people in London. We've seen people in Paris. We've seen people in Sydney, in New Zealand, all over the world protesting the brutality by police to black people. And that is, I can't even think of an adjective to think of what that is. It's disgusting, number one, that we even have to have them do that. It's disgusting, number two, that I'm rambling at this point. I'm just so over it. I'm just so over it. I'm just so over it. I'm so over black people dying because of white people. I'm so over black people not being able to live their lives without fear. I mean, I can't tell you how many posts I saw when COVID-19 and face mask regulations first started, and how many black people expressed their concern that they were going to walk into a grocery store with a mask and immediately be deemed a robber, or they're going to be stealing something, or a danger to whatever was happening inside that store, just going on about their lives, just wearing a mask. Again, that's our white privilege. That's not a worry that we have. And I am including myself in that, because even though I'm Native American, I'm clearly white. I'm a white girl. I'm very, very pale. So I realize that I have privilege. And it's not necessarily something that I've done. I mean, it's not my fault that I was born the skin color I was born. Just like it's not a black person's fault that he was born brown, or a Hispanic person, or black and Hispanic person, or a Native American that they were born brown. And Christians who are like this, Jesus was not white. Jesus is not a white guy with flowing brown locks and bright blue eyes. He was from the Middle East. He was brown. And he also said, love thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor. There's not an asterisk beside that. So you can't cherry pick the Bible and decide what you're going to choose and what you're not, and who you're going to support, who you're not. Love your neighbor. Love them whether they're white, whether they're purple, if they're LGBTQ+. You just have to recognize the privilege, and you have to recognize just how ingrained socially acceptable white supremacy is. And there's a really great graph that I'll also try to include a link to down below, and I'll read some of them. So it says, overt white supremacy that is socially unacceptable: lynching, hate crimes, blackface, the N-word, swastikas, neo-Nazis, branding crosses, racist jokes, racist slurs, and KKK. And then we have covert white supremacy, which is socially acceptable: calling the police on black people, white silence, color blindness. Don't say you don't see color. Everybody is a different color, and that's okay. We just have to make sure everybody has the same damn human rights. White parents self-segregating neighborhoods and schools, Eurocentric curriculum. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and the civil rights movement was glossed over. There was a Tulsa massacre. I grew up in Oklahoma, and there was a Tulsa massacre And it wasn't covered at all. I just learned about it the other day, and I'm 42 years old, and I grew up in Oklahoma. Make America Great Again is racist. Racist mascots like the Redskins. People get so angry when the Native Americans push for the Washington Redskins to change their name. Redskins is just as much as a racial slur as the N-word. Just as much. It's on the same exact level. And it should not be allowed to be a team name. Finally, some schools have gotten rid of savages. I mean, it's... don't blame me. I never owned slave. Blaming the victim. Oh, they should have been, they shouldn't have, resisted arrest. They should have, just done what they were told. George Floyd did what he was told and he was killed. But what about me? All lives matter. Hiring discrimination. People of color Halloween costumes. So whether you're wearing, a Hawaiian luau, a geisha, a Native American headdress, all of those are cultural appropriation and they're racist costumes unless you are of that ethnicity. Let's see. Fearing people of color, tokenism, English only initiatives. Housing discrimination, inequitable health care. Smoky Glow, Hannah, I watched her video the other day and she brought up the current U.S. Census. 76% of Americans are white and 16% of them are black. And the black have the highest percentage of people in prison. And that's because they are targeted. Black neighborhoods are targeted. Black people are targeted. You have so many black men and women in prison who, for petty crimes, for crimes that a lot of white people didn't even get jail time for. Our entire system, from top to bottom, is racist. And we've got to fix it. We have to fix it. Everybody has the constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everybody has the same constitutional rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And we have to get to a point where that is no longer just a phrase. It has to be where everybody on our planet is treated equally. And if you fear that, I really need you to look inside yourself and figure out why. Because it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. It should matter. Everybody has the same rights. Just because someone is different than you doesn't make them bad. When Donald Trump was campaigning for president, I lost a lot of friends and a lot of my family. And I'll probably do it again. And I don't give a flying fuck. If you support a racist, you are complicit. So, I'm not racist, but you support a racist. You support racist policies. He drained the swamp, but turns out he's the biggest swamp monster of them all. So I'm going to leave that there. So don't even bother with stupid White Lives Matter comments or anything else like that. I don't want to hear them. You'll be deleted. Don't say you're going to, I don't need to know that you're going to unsubscribe. I don't care if I end up with 100 subscribers after this. I don't care. I refuse to be silent. And I refuse to be silenced. I have white privilege. I can say what I want to say without fear of somebody showing up and ending my life. So I'm going to try to leave some links down below to some great articles about, how it's not enough to be not racist. We need to be anti-racist. And, places where you can donate. I've donated what I can. I've signed petitions. I've done everything I can. I'm not physically able to go protest. If I was, I would be there. It's never my intention to talk over another minority. So if you feel that way, please message me and let me know, because that's not the point. I just feel like so many people are like, la 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 la, I can't hear you, la 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 la, that I wanted to take an opportunity to say, this is what, you know, this is what we mean when we say Black Lives Matter, and this is what it means when we say white privilege. So hopefully I did an okay job with that. But anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. I know it's a hard time for you guys right now, not only with the pandemic, but now with this. And, you know, we have the leadership that we do, but hopefully that will be taken care of in November. But anyway, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.